A few years back, I went spelunking with my seminary classmates. Spelunking is a form of cave exploration. We visited the Wind Cave National Park in South Dakota during our J term. The national park boasts one of the largest cave systems, the Wind Cave, in the United States. We were told to wear really good hiking boots in order to descend down into the cave safely. I remember lacing my boots up carefully, thinking, this was not my comfort zone. I feel compelled to confess that I am not a rock climber or adventurer. I don't even camp. That being said, I have an enormous amount of respect for those who enjoy these activities. But I don't like tight spaces. I don't like water covering my head or blankets over my head. I feel a certain sense of dread when there are low ceilings inside a tent. I wouldn't classify myself as claustrophobic, but I avoid these things out of personal preference. They make me uncomfortable. So, of course, I went cave exploring anyway, realizing that something was pushing me outside my comfort zone. For crying out loud, what possibly could be the takeaway, the epiphany of this moment? What does God want to show me now in a cave? When you first go down into a cave, you are struck by the prominently posted signs throughout with clear warnings: do not stray from the path or your group. This makes sense because the expansive tunnels that run for miles, separation from your guide and your light source could be catastrophic. So I say a quick prayer to settle my nerves. I couldn't help but think how awful it would be to go through this challenge lost, without light or a guide to follow. I notice a heavy, oppressive feeling as the rock ceiling hangs uncomfortably close and the air is damp and humid. More prayer tumbles quietly out of my mouth and under my breath. We descended down for 45 minutes, stopping along the way, taking in the depth and sights of the cave, listening to the origin story of the Lakota First People and the Wind Cave. Finally, we arrived at the largest cavern, the lowest cavern, where all of us stood in wonder. We marveled at the crystallized minerals soaring overhead and the incredible layers of rock that nature formed over thousands of years. Then, the park rangers told us to move away from the edges of the cavern to the center of the cave floor. They asked us to stand with our weight evenly distributed and turn off our cell phones. I laughed, thinking, there's no way a signal would get through half a kilometer of rock overhead. Then they turned to us and told us that we were about to experience dark. They were going to turn off the lights. They asked us to remain silent. They told us we would be in complete darkness for only 3 minutes. I began counting. As my mind raced, what? Darkness? True darkness? What is God trying to show me in this? I gotta be honest with you. Fear gripped me. When the light goes out, the dark drops over us. I'm shocked by the sound of my own gasp. I could hear everyone else's anxious breathing and imagine them hearing mine. Instinctively, I held my hand out in front of my face, and I could not not see it. There was absolutely nothing to see without light. No light source, no reassuring voice, no directional signs to follow, just the feeling of being alone, afraid, and lost. When the light finally came, instantly a cheer goes up from our group, relief, joy, buoyancy, elation. That is how I would describe our collective feeling. My feeling of finding the light and being able to see again. I invite you to relate this experience to today's gospel text, remembering that dark space in the cave, the fear and sense of being lost. Imagine what it's like to not have light in your life. Imagine not having hope and light, that is, our faith in Jesus Christ. Then I invite you to imagine that resurrection moment when the light returns, when God's activity is present through Jesus Christ and us as followers, illuminating the world. We are called to follow Jesus. We are called to believe John the Baptist, a gospel signpost pointing to Jesus as the Lamb of God. We are called, like Andrew, to begin following Jesus, falling into step within Christ's ministry of healing and caring for others. We are called, like Simon, transformed by following Jesus, becoming a new creation. You are Simon, son of John. You are to be called Peter. Jesus was and is worth following. He meets us at our greatest need by living with, serving among, and healing those on the margins of society. In our own humanity, we descend into the depth of sin. Jesus goes into the darkest caves, leading us past our sin into the light again and again. That is God's grace. That is Jesus' saving sacrifice and death on the cross for all of our sake, because God finds all of us beloved and worthy. He does this simply by refusing to be anything other than a reflection of God's love in the world. Theologian Richard Rohr, in his weekly devotion, observes that Jesus operates outside of oppressive systems. He dines with the despised tax collector Zacchaeus, despite how he has sinned, instead providing mental support for a life transformation. Jesus heals the woman with hemorrhages despite her inability to pay, and treats other women with equity and respect. He basically provides for and heals the suffering without proof of insurance coverage, regardless of religious affiliation or country of origin or gender norms, treating all with dignity and love. There are no physical exams, questionnaires, weight charts, asset analysis, because the God that we love and who loves us exists outside of man-made policies, outside of insurance riders, credit scores, borders, outside of any lines that divide and oppress the vulnerable, the poor, the aged, and the sick. In this gospel story, John the Baptist guides us towards Jesus and encourages us to recognize Jesus for who he really is. Look, here is the Lamb of God. John's followers, eagerly awaiting a sign, a Messiah, hearing John the Baptist testify, "This is the Son of God," they immediately trailed Jesus. And Jesus notices, "What are you looking for?" They respond, "Rabbi, where are you dwelling?" Taken from the Greek word meno, to dwell, to abide, this is less of an address than a state of being. Where are you abiding spiritually, teacher? And Jesus invites them, telling them to come and see. We are all invited in that moment to come and see. We are all called to be witnesses to the light. We are called this Epiphany season to recognize the light of God in the world, treating others with equity and dignity. We recognize God's activity through our neighbors, through Jesus' ministry. Jesus, whose ministry of caring and healing baptizes him into our human condition, begins to guide us into how to live and serve God and each other in love. Jesus calls to each of us this Epiphany. Follow me. Come and see. How do we do this? We love each other. We serve each other. We make that phone call. We put ourselves aside. And maybe we put our laptops down and make eye contact. We listen. We be present, just as Jesus has been present in our lives, our light. We become the light to someone else. Jesus shows us through his life, death, and resurrection how to be better human beings. By following Jesus, our true light, we can make it through the darkness. Jesus lives outside our comfort zones. Jesus lives in the dark spaces we find our neighbors and ourselves. Jesus lives and lights the way through the darkness and offers hope to all. Amen.